Welcome to Lattes and Laundry, a podcast created to keep you company as you fold the clothes or for when you take your well-deserved coffee break. Life at home, while never dull, can sometimes be a little lonesome. My hope is that this podcast makes you feel like you have a friend with you as you go about your day. I'm so glad that you're here. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Lattes and Laundry. Thank you for joining me today. I want to introduce you to my guest today. This is Jenna from the Teacup Homestead on Instagram. Jenna is a mama and a homemaker, and she shares on her Instagram about refining the art of motherhood, homemaking, and homesteading. She also has a very beautiful magazine that she curates and creates, and also she has a website. So I'm going to go ahead and let her introduce herself. Jenna, thank you for talking to me today.
Hey, thanks for having me on. So that's pretty much, you did a great job. I'm Jenna Smith. I'm the creator behind the Teacup Homestead and Homemade Homesteading magazine. My husband and I have been married for almost 10 years now, and we have 4 children, 3 boys and 1 baby girl. We have a small homestead nestled in the forest of the Ozarks, where we homestead, homeschool, and we also have a few different small businesses that we operate out of our home. And that's about it. I'm excited to chat with you today.
Yes, thank you for being here. Do you still sell Persian tea as well? I saw that on your website, and I remembered you did that. Do you still do that?
Yeah. I do it in small batches. Like, I always have some on hand and home, but it's a little bit more difficult to create larger batches. So I try and do it at least twice a year. I make like a batch and have at least like 5 or 6 bags of it for sale. It's like I do try and stock them more regularly, but it is it's on there right now. I think I've got a couple bags for sale right now, actually, and yeah.
Okay, that's really cool. Do y'all have? I know you have. Don't you have chickens? Do you have other animals on your homestead as well?
Yeah, so it's mainly chickens. We did just get goats a couple weeks ago. We've had sheep like 2 years ago. We had sheep for a year or two, and we just switched to goats. Hopefully, we're gonna get our own goat milk like the next year. It's always like, you got to invest now in order to,
right.
Reap the benefits later. So we just mainly have our chickens and goats.
Okay, that's cool. My mom has always wanted sheep. They don't have any, but she's always wanted sheep. But I used to take banjo lessons from a lady who had sheep, and they are the cutest little thing.
They are. They're so much fun. And goats, too. Like, I don't know. They're just really... I love being able to look outside and just see either chickens roaming around or goats or, you know what I mean? It's definitely nice. It's cool to be around them.
Yeah, that does sound very nice. So today I wanted to talk to you about how you create rhythms and routines in your home and with your homemaking. And I know this is something that I personally struggle a lot with. I really struggle with being consistent with routines. I'm kind of like in the middle of trying to implement some systems into my house to make things easier. So I'm really excited to talk to you about this today. How do you go about creating your rhythms and routines?
So I think a big part, and I still struggle with this too. Like, I am not perfect by any means, but first looking at like what season of life you're in, and then trying to have realistic expectations. You know what I mean? So first, like, I would love to be able to do X, Y, Z, and all these things, but like, right now we have a baby and a lot of new animal, like baby animals and stuff, and we're not able to just go travel and do all these other things. So it's like, look at where you are and then kind of go backward from there. Like, one of my sons, he's disabled and he has therapy 2 to 3 times a week. So a lot of our schedule moves around things that, that we have like appointments for or things like that. And I try to work around that. But honestly, I think starting out your day with a semi-solid routine is kind of, that like helps me. Like, starting out in the very beginning with unloading the dishwasher and starting to make tea and just kind of reading my Bible and doing like simple, small, foundational things kind of sets you up for like, even if things don't go perfectly planned like I wanted them to, like, all the beds were made, we all had breakfast, we all kind of did these basic things, and then we can kind of like have wiggle room to go from there, if that makes sense.
Right. So do you think that a morning routine is really at like the first place that you would start?
Well, so I would say that, but then when I think about it, it's like my morning routine is the way it is because the evening before I loaded the dishwasher and ran the dishwasher overnight and made sure, you know what I mean? I kind of like set myself up. So, you know, just, I don't know, I'm always trying to make things easier for myself in the future. And so that kind of helps me like be like, okay, like if I just spend 5 minutes doing this now, even though it's, you know, I want to go to bed, like I can just start the dishwasher, it'll run overnight. The next morning, we all have clean dishes, don't have to worry about that, you know, for the whole next day. And so just, yeah, that kind of makes a big difference for me at least.
Right, like thinking about your future self.
Yeah, exactly, right? Because there's been so many times I spend a lot of time just winging it. And my husband, I love him to death, but he could just fly by the seat of his pants all his whole life. You know what I mean? And I like, which is good though. It's good for me because like I want to plan every single little thing, and like that's just not realistic, right? So like, we kind of balance each other out, and like, and yeah, I don't know. It kind of reminds me to just go with the flow because he just goes with the flow. Right. So even though I totally struggle with that, still, I've definitely gotten better about just being like, okay, like, you know, right now I'm still nursing and doing this, and we still have all this stuff going on. So it's not realistic to just have, you know, really high, crazy expectations right now. And then, but it's not always going to be like that, right? Like eventually our kids are going to grow up and we're going to be in a whole different season, and we can, you know, reevaluate then and just go with the flow. Right.
Well, that was actually another thing I was going to ask you, because I unfortunately kind of fall in the same camp like your husband with like, not that I fly by the seat of my pants with everything, but I'm not naturally super organized. I'm not naturally super self-disciplined. And I was going to ask you, do you think that you're someone that things like organization and self-discipline comes really natural to, or is it something that you've really had to work on over the years to develop that?
You know, like, honestly, I don't want to say like somebody can't learn how to do it, but like for me, it just comes naturally. Right. Like my parents were divorced and stuff, but both of them like kept nice homes and had routines, and it was like, it wasn't perfect, you know what I mean? But like I had expectations about like, okay, like I do, you know, writing lessons on this day, we do this on this day, you know, on the weekends we try and do this, and it like, even though it changed, just having kind of a set plan really helped me out when I was a kid. And then so I think that just kind of carried over. Like I don't know, I just kind of like would like things to go smoothly, so again I just try and set myself up, and I'm not perfect, I totally, and you know, there's days where like, you know, your whole family is randomly sick, wakes up with a stomach bug, and they're like, okay, well now it's just laundry and soup on repeat. You know what I mean? And right. Like, so your whole thing gets messed up. And so I think that like being able to go with the flow is actually like, it's not a bad thing, right? Right. Because I used to get I would have plans, and then if anything messed it up, like I was just totally just, you know what I mean, like really threw me off, and then I could get grumpy about it or anxious about it, and like, so really not clinging to the plans, you know what I mean? Like planning only goes so far, but yeah, just really you need to have a mix of like going with the flow and then just kind of like forcing, you know what I mean? Right. Like some sort of structure, or just kind of like, even if you don't fit into it, just kind of being like, okay, I would like to maybe, like, I call it Toilet Tuesday, and that like makes me remember, okay, it's Tuesday, I should probably check the toilets. And even if I don't get to it till Wednesday, it was still like on my mind on Tuesday. You know what I mean? Like silly stuff like that, like totally helps me out.
Yeah, it's like, it kind of feels like we walk this fine line between trying to manage everything well, and then also having that flexibility, and sometimes having to adjust your expectations depending on what season you're in. But yeah, so I get that. I actually missed something that I was going to ask you. I wanted you to tell us a little bit about your journey into homemaking and your passion behind your homemaking, and like, where did that come from? What inspired you to it, and what did that journey look like for you?
Yeah, totally. So I'm actually like the first one in my like family to be a full-time homemaker, I guess. Like, my mom worked a job all the time, and my dad worked, my stepdad worked, and all this stuff, but they were both, like, my mom was an excellent homemaker. Like, she would still come home, and her house would be clean, and she'd have dinner, you know what I mean? And then I'd go over to my dad's house, and his house was nice, and he had his own different routines, you know what I mean? And so, and my grandma and my aunts, like, I had really good examples of, like, a nice, clean home. You know what I mean? That, to me, like, was calming, and not having, like, when I got into college and moved out, I moved all the way to Arizona, like, away from my family, and I was kind of, like, on my own, and I still found that, like, you know what I mean, those routines and having clean, organized stuff, like, really helped me out. And so I was kind of like, out of all my friends, my house was always the one that people would come over for dinner and tea, because it was like, you know what I mean, like, I brought that with me wherever I went, you know. But I was working as a caregiver when I met my husband, and when we got together, before we got married, like, we knew we wanted to get married and have kids, and we moved to a different part of Arizona that I hadn't been to before, and I remember I was, like, stressed out about trying to find a job down there, and he was like, wait, like, don't, like, just stay home, like, I'll just work, and you just stay home, and, you know, we're gonna have kids, we're gonna do this, and it was, like, kind of blew my mind, like, it's what I wanted, but at the time, it was still, like, wait, like, I'm just going to be at home all day? You know what I mean? I had, like, that young mentality of, like, we don't have kids yet, or, you know what I mean? And it didn't help that I got a lot of, I don't know, there were definitely some friends and family that were just kind of like, what do you do all day? You know what I mean? And it was still, like, I was still busy. I was doing, you know what I mean? I was learning how to cook and learning how to do all these different things before we had kids. And so, so I started homemaking then, and then once our son was born, it just kind of kept on going. My husband works remotely because he's in IT, so we both had to be home together, so that really helps with homeschooling and stuff, and that really, like, that totally, you know what I mean, like, I understand not everyone gets to do that, so, like, but that's helped me in my journey, too, just having us both, like, I mean, he's working, you know what I mean, like, I can't, like, bother him all day, but, like, he's there, you know, and that, like, totally helped out and stuff, and, but yeah, now with all 4 of our kids, I just, I love it. I love being a mom. I love being a homemaker and cooking. I love cleaning. I love serving them. And it's just, like, all these things I learned in college. And, like, you know, I had to, like, the world tells you you've got to choose a career, right? Which is, like, a one single path. Like, what do you want to do your whole life? And it's like, I don't know. Like, I don't want to, you know, I don't want to just clean for my whole life or just cook for my whole life. But I feel like being a mom lets you still be creative and still be home, and you're working all these different things and wearing all these different hats, but it's like going towards a family. I think that's just really amazing.
And something you said when you were talking about your mom setting an example for you with homemaking, and you remember your homes, like your mom and your dad keeping a nice home. It's like, there are things that I think about, like, from my childhood, or even from, like, things that books that I read or little shows that I watched when I was a kid, that, like, it kind of captures, like, a mood or a vibe that you want in your home, like things that I think about for my kids. So, like, what is the essence of home that you want in your home for your children? What was that things that you want them to carry with them and remember, like, oh, mom always did this, or, you know, our home was always like XYZ. What are those things for you?
Oh, totally. So, I mean, food, I'm half Italian and half Persian, and food is, like, a big deal in both cultures. Food and hospitality, actually. So, I want them just to have, you know, good food and remember big dinners, and, like, I liked when we all had family parties growing up, and we all got together, we had friends over, and, like, my mom's friends' kids, and, you know what I mean, like, stuff like that. And I love Teatime, so I try and, like, I do Teatime, even though my daughter's little and my boys, well, are boys, they still, like, enjoy having tea and treat and Bible time and stuff, but, yeah, I just want home to be, like, a cozy, like, I don't know, I had to go to public school, and I wanted to be homeschooled my whole life, and so, like, I love that I get to do that for them, and that they get to have, like, this home atmosphere, and, like, that's, like, our home base, right? Because when you're in school, for me at least, it was like I wanted to be home, but I was in school, like, more than I was home, you know. And so for them, I really think that's important. And then just being able to, like, play outside. Like, we didn't always have our homestead's pretty small, actually. We only have, like, an acre or two of cleared land that's, like, accessible and usable right now. And, like, before we even had, lived in a neighborhood. And, like, just being able to have a yard or going outside or having them, like, even grow a tomato themselves or flowers, you know what I mean? Like, all these little things, I really love it. When you're talking about, like, shows and aesthetics, do you know the show Little Bear from, the 90s?
Oh, yeah, that's one of them for me.
Like, yeah, totally. Like, Mother Bear and just always cooking and baking and then, like, them just playing in the garden or doing adventures and stuff. Like, that was, like, so homey and, like, comforting. And I just, like, my kids even joked, they'd be like, oh, I'll be wearing a pink apron. They're like, oh, you look like Mother Bear today. Something silly, you know what I mean?
So
I'm
sweet.
like, that is a huge compliment. So, like,
yeah. I loved, like, Little Bear was one, and then there was, like, I don't know who did it, but there was, like, a series of movies that was made from the Beatrix Potter illustrations and stories, and the one with... Well, all of them, but there was one specific one that had Mrs. Hodgepodge and Jeremy Fisher, and they had these cute little houses, like, built into hillsides, and I remember they had little clotheslines and little tea sets. It was just the sweetest thing. It's like, that's it, that right there.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
But yes, Little Bear too.
Yep, totally. And it's just, like, I don't know, especially in today's world, I like, again, with homeschooling, I mean, that's another thing that's still, I think more people are, like, thinking about it more and being more comfortable with it, but I still get people that are like, oh, socialization or blah, 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 like all these things, and it's, like, really, like, once you see how beneficial it's for the whole family, I think, to be together. Like, I think, at least for our family, this is what God has told us that, like, He wants our family to be right now, you know what I mean? So, like, and I know that, and maybe it's, I'm sure it's different for everybody, but, like, just, I find, like, so much joy in just, like, fulfilling that role that God had planned for me, like, way before it was even on my radar, you know what I mean?
Right.
And now when I get to look back and, like, see, like, wow, that was all, like, I, get to still be creative, I love to cook, I love to do this stuff, and now I get to cook for the people I love literally the most in the whole entire world, It's just, it just really, like, I feel blessed, and, I just really love it.
And you're able to pass some of the skills that you've learned down to your future generations through them being home with you and being able to teach them those things.
Totally. And, that kind of draws, like, something I realized, too, like, our rhythms, like, we do every weekend, whether it's Saturday or Sunday, one day every weekend, I make pancakes. And the kids, like, love pancakes. They know that they get it every weekend. It's like, so your rhythm, they kind of, like, turn into traditions, you know what I mean? Like, if we go to the pumpkin patch every fall and pick out our pumpkins to make pumpkin pie, like, you do that 2 times in a row, and it's now a fun family tradition that your kids are going to remember and cherish. And it's like, when you see that all these little day-to-day things, like, they do add up and build up, and to be, like, something your kids are going to carry with them and, like, forever, like, that kind of that might make it easier to, like, go, or make it easier for me at least, to go day by day, you know what I mean, and, like, make the pancakes one day a weekend, even if I might not feel like it, because I know it's a fun family thing, and they're going to enjoy it, and, like, it's going to, you know what I mean, it's going to build into a bigger picture that we don't see right now.
Absolutely. And I've noticed, like, my kids are 3 and 4, and they remember everything. They remember everything. So I can totally see what you're saying, that, like, the more you do these little things repetitively, that it does become like a tradition that they look forward to, or a weekly staple thing that they look forward to, because my kids, they don't forget anything.
Yeah, and I mean, some things too, like, something that stood out to me about a certain family trip, like, or say it was, like, stressful for me and my husband to, like, take all the kids and do this big thing. Like, they don't remember it that way, right? They remember, like, some little highlight that meant a lot to them that I might not even pick up on. And it's, like, so it's really cool to just, like, do the things. Even, that's another thing, too. Like, I have to push myself a lot of, like, out of my comfort zone to go do, like, a lot of extroverted, fun family things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
And, like, my husband and I are both introverted, so it's, like... But every time we go, we meet others, and it gets easier every time. And then even if even if we don't have fun or it was stressful, like they had fun, and so that makes it fun for us, and that just makes it worth it, and like it's all around a good thing when good came out of it, even if it wasn't like the best family fun weekend we had. You know what I mean? It's still like it means a lot to them.
Yeah, it's like creating their core memories. Like people like to say, they're creating their core memories.
Yeah, exactly, totally.
So what area of homemaking do you think is the hardest to be disciplined in, or which one is the easiest for you? Like for me, like I tend to get really behind on laundry, which I did just create a system that seems to be helping me, which is good.
Nice.
Because laundry is like one of the areas that I tend to get way behind in because people go through a lot of clothes in my house.
Yep.
So which one do you find the hardest and which one is easiest for you?
Okay, well, I am terrible at meal planning.
Oh, that's another one.
I cannot meal plan. Like, lunchtime, every single day, lunchtime pops up, and it surprises me every day. And I'm like, if I don't have leftovers or something simple on hand, like, I still kind of get flustered sometimes with lunch. And then if you don't have it, I don't know, I still try. I try and, like, I call it, have you ever seen the show Chopped, where you, like, see what you have on hand, and you've got to, like, make some, so that's, like, I kind of do that, and it's probably not the best, because sometimes it's so stressful, you know what I mean? And, like, I get that meal planning is probably amazing for some people, but, like, the thought of even creating the meal plan is so, like, it's not, I can't do it right now, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's something that's still difficult for me. But things like laundry and dishes and, like, the house itself is easier for me, but I have to, like, stop myself from trying to, like, care about how clean the floors are, you know what I mean? In order to, like, let the kids play and, and, like, have our house be lived in, because 4 children and dogs live there and we live there, you know what I mean?
Right.
Chickens and all this stuff. So it's, like, that's, like, easy, but also a struggle in a different way of just being, like, not super, like, adamant about, not being a perfectionist, because, like, that's, like, they're not going to remember whether or not the floors were clean. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to remember if they got to play and do puzzles and have fun, or if I tried to make the house like a museum, like, they're going to remember that too, right? So, like, I try and I've got to kind of, like, loosen up with that a little bit. But yeah, meal planning hardest for me, but then laundry and stuff, I honestly just do laundry every single day. I have to do it, like, once, maybe even twice a day, and then, that keeps it from, like, getting too piled up at least.
Right. My husband works in construction, so he's outside all day. And so he'll have his his clothes that he wears to work, and then he goes to the gym after work. So then there's his gym clothes, and then he comes home and takes a shower, and then he puts on more clothes. So he goes through a lot of clothes, and then of course kids go through a lot of clothes with spills and stuff. So it's just like so easy for it to pile up on me to the point where, and I'll be like grabbing clothes off the laundry pile, and I throw it in the wash and wash it and everything, and it won't be anything that my husband needed for the week. It'll all just end up being. So what I ended up doing, my mom suggested I go get one of those laundry bins that has like the 3 separated bags.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So I did that, and I've got the middle one is for the kids, and then mine is on one side and my husband's is on the other side, and that seems to be working. If I can just maintain that, I think it'll be okay.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, and like actually with summertime too, my kids go outside and play in the hose and like the sprinkler and stuff. So then they do that like 3 separate times zone. Each time, that's like a whole pair of clothing that got wet. So then it's like I just did a whole bunch of laundry, and my son will be like, I don't have any boxers. I'm like, I just washed all of your laundry. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you just wore all of them in one day, like, so.
Oh, I can't imagine.
Trying to, like, do that is just, that's hard to do. But, the 3 separated system, that sounds good. Because right now, I do, like, sort the laundry. I do, like, a kids' / really dirty, dirty pile, and I wash that, and then I keep our white towel. I wouldn't ever be weird about whites. I know some people don't wash their whites, but we just, like, we had white towels one year. We invested in a nice like, set of them, so now I, like, try and wash those separately so they don't just get ruined by, like, clay or a pen or,
right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, any random, so, because kids, oh my goodness, rocks and sand, and I don't even know what they have in their pockets, but
oh yeah, I've found
their stuff's got to be separate.
I've found stickers and Band-Aids and little plastic toys that thankfully I caught before they got to the dryer, because that would have been disastrous. I have a brother, and my mom always used to tell me she would be afraid she was going to find a dead frog in her washing machine because he would stick stuff in his pockets. You just never know.
Totally. Yeah, that's one of my sons. I could see that happening when he's older.
So we talked a little bit just now about systems. Do you have like specific systems that you have set up in your home to help you maintain your routine?
Like I used to, when we only had 2 kids, I would literally mop the floor like once a week religiously, okay? Like it would be mopped every single week. I'd vacuum multiple times a week, and my floors were clean and spotless. But like now, because my oldest is 8, and my 6-year-old, he's disabled, Brad, so my 8-year-old and my 4-year-old are just wild. Like they're outside all the time. And so it's literally like, I had to just kind of stop mopping, but like I don't mop every week because it's literally not going to make a difference. So like I know, you know what I mean? It's like, it's almost like, my time is valuable, right? My energy is valuable, and I'm like, I've got all these things to do, and if I'm doing something that's immediately just going to get undone, and it's not imperative to our health, like if there's something dirty, obviously I clean it up, right? Like our floors aren't like disgusting by any means, but like I can't just, for the sake of having the floors clean every week, I can't like justify doing it, you know what I mean? Like doing it like religiously all the time because it's just not productive, right? So now, right now I'm probably honestly in the most like relaxed, loose, like solid routine thing. I still do the dishes every night, like the dishwasher runs overnight, so in the morning I undo it. I try and make sure that like the meat for dinner is defrosted in the morning or the day before or in the fridge, so we don't just have like all of a sudden no meat for dinner. You know, right? Like, sometimes that happens. But or like if I know, one thing I do try and do is I always try to make, like, I'm always the one making dinner usually, or my husband will grill sometimes, but because that's my main thing, I try and be home from either outings or shopping or even fun stuff with kids. I try to be home by like 3:30 in the afternoon at the very latest, because otherwise I'm rushing home, rushing dinner, and it's just like stresses me out, you know what I mean? So like trying to plan your day and just being like, okay, I know that like the evenings are busy for my family. I don't make appointments in the afternoons. I don't, you know what I mean? I kind of like plan stuff around that. But beyond that, like, it's a lot of just going with the flow right now. But again, there's certain things, like if there's clutter on the floor, like vacuuming, like I have to vacuum it because it literally makes me feel better. Like,
right.
I don't know if it's, you know what I mean? It's like clutter is clutter, even if it's like crumbs on the floor, right? And so once that, like, I still, you know, take care of stuff like that and do the bathrooms and make sure, you know, but like things like windows. My kids, all of them can reach the windows and mirrors and doors, and it's like, I can't just keep them clean all the time. And that's totally okay right now, you know? Right. And one day I will have clean windows all the time, and it might make me sad because I don't have sticky little boy handprints everywhere, you know? Right. You know, or like all this sticky stuff to clean up. And so I'm just trying to kind of give myself grace and also be like realistic with just what's going on right now. And then, you know, like literally the winter time is totally different than our summertime, right? Like I can keep the floors clean in the winter because we're not running outside in the mud every like 3 times a day, or, you know, and so stuff like that. But yeah, that's kind of it. I just have to like reevaluate things and do it as often. Like I used to think, like, you know, you get a good routine. I'm like, wow, this routine's totally working. I felt great about it. And then something with, like, my husband's schedule would change, or we had to do something else differently for a couple weeks, and it used to, like, throw me off, right? But, like, I just have to reevaluate as often as needed now, and that totally makes a difference in, like, the stress level of just being like, okay, like, I know my husband's schedule is every morning he's got phone calls up until noon. Like, you know what I mean? Like, then, you know, we just we go with it, and then when that changes, we reevaluate, and then just kind of go from there.
Right. Yeah. I think that's another thing that, like, it goes kind of by a season thing, like, depending on what season you're in, and having that ability to be flexible if you need to be.
Totally.
And, like, I guess at certain points, like, for instance, when your kids are babies, like, for me, because I had issues with breastfeeding, so we ended up doing formula. Like, I had to stay on top of bottles. Like, that was, like, the thing. It was, like, bottles have to be clean. They have to be boiled. Like, it has to be done. So, totally. I guess you just kind of have things that change depending on the season of life that you're in. Yeah, so, exactly, I like your point about reevaluating depending on what changes, and, like, being able to go with the flow in that way, and let some of the things go. What do you think the importance and the benefit of having well-established routines is for your family, for your home? Like, what do you think the major benefit is to that?
I think that children, like, as a child, I really thrived on just having some structure. And I grew up with friends that had no structure, or no routine, or no, my parents, I feel like everyone thought my parents were the strict ones. You know what I mean? But, like, I literally, like, it made me have self-discipline, and made me a hard worker, and made me, like, have all these values that I have today. And I know that those are good values, you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't change that for anything. And so I think that children, just knowing, like, they have to know how to go with the flow, right? I feel like they probably do that easier than us do, that we do as adults. But having, like what can they expect from their parents, you know what I mean? Like, they can expect that, I want them to be able to expect that, like, they're going to have clean clothing, and they're not going to have to stress out about, like, oh, did mom do the laundry, or, like, did she clean, like, we've got no forks, no plate, like, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't want that to be something, like, that would stress me out. I don't want to kind of, you know what I mean, like, pass it on to anyone, or, like, make, someone, like, never feel that way either. So it's like, I try and just kind of do the best I can do, so that they can just kind of have some expectations of, like, how days are going to go, or how, weeks, and that translate into, like, school later on, and work, you know what I mean, when they're adults and stuff. So, right. Like, I just kind of, like, our homeschool, during, like, the typical school season, we homeschool more intensely than we do during the summertime. But we don't ever just, like, stop learning anything during the summer. Like, you know what I mean? Like, right. We are always doing things and engaging and doing different things, but it just looks different in the summertime than it does in the school year. But when it's the school year, like, my 8-year-old knows, like, okay, like, he's expected to kind of just be able to sit down more and, like, do more Bible time and do all this stuff, and then he knows when it's summertime, it's like summer, you can do more fun things. And it's like, I think that's, not that it's, like, not, the same as, like, if they were in typical school, but, again, having expectations on their end from, like, what does the school year look like, or what am I supposed to do? You know what I mean? It helps them, like, figure out what they're supposed to, kind of, like, what their role is and things too. Right.
And I think in a way, too, it's, like, in a way, having routines gives you freedom, because you have your time managed to where, when it's time to get serious about something, be it school or your housework or cooking meals or whatever, you've got that time marked, but then you have time for your hobbies and stuff. Like, that's something I struggle with. It's like, I struggle with time management, because a lot of times things just feel like chaos to me, and I don't know if it's the age of my kids, but it's like, plus the fact that they're so close together, but a lot of times things just feel like chaos. And I told my mom today, it's like, it feels like everything needs my attention, and it's just overwhelming. But whenever but whenever I have been able to set myself into some kind of a routine, it does feel like freedom. It feels like I've got more time than I thought I had.
Oh, I know, right? And it like, that's what, like, in the beginning too, I said that, like, having certain routines and rhythms, like, it really does give you freedom, so that when things don't go according to plan, again, right? Like, you still have your dishes, or your laundry, or you've got meat in the fridge and not frozen, you know what I mean? Like, and so that, again, just kind of helps, like, future you keep going. And I know I used to kind of, I still kind of struggle with being present, right? But like being a homemaker and a mom, you do have to, like, I've got to make 3 meals a day. I have to do some sort of like idea, right? Of like, I need to make sure I've got meats and all this stuff or fruit or whatever. And so like, I don't know, it's a hard balance.
Yeah, it's a
hard
balance.
balance, but I think it's, I don't know, I know it's worth it, and like, we can still be present and still try and kind of like make things easier on ourselves in the future. And if we keep on, you know, if you're always, not always looking out for yourself in the future, but if you're kind of like, that's on your mind, then like, you're going to get to the evening time and you're going to be like, wow, I'm so glad I did this, or I did that, you know what I mean? And then the next day you're going to be like, oh wow, like, I did this and that, and it just makes it so you, like, over time, I feel like it helps you create more time and more freedom, and you know, like, again, like, it flows into a bigger picture than just like your daily grind type of thing.
Right. So what advice or encouragement would you give to somebody who is a discouraged homemaker and just feels overwhelmed by everything? I mean, obviously that they need to create a routine, but if they don't have any routines and they're just discouraged and overwhelmed and everything feels chaotic, not unlike myself most of the time, what advice would you give them?
No, yeah, and like, honestly, I struggle with that too, and like the overwhelm and the chaos feeling, but like baby steps, and again, just reevaluating. Like, if you have, say you've got no routines and you're trying to start, like, evaluate, like, what is my husband's schedule like? Do my kids wake up early? Do they wake up late? Like, you know, you don't want to try and make breakfast at 7 o'clock if your kids don't wake up at 9 till 9. Like,
right.
Stuff like that, right? So, evaluating what season your entire family's in, your husband, you, your children, and just being super realistic. I think that's just number one, because you can't set yourself up for failure by like having crazy expectations, because you'll just be disappointed, right? And beyond that, I mean, maybe just choosing a few foundational things, because I literally, like, I have my friends that struggle with dishes and stuff like that, but it's something that I've literally just always has been instilled with me, to just take care of it at the end of the day, and the next day it's like a literal clean slate. And so maybe doing a couple of foundational things, like whether it's dishes or laundry or whatever area of your home that you're trying to like maybe refine, and you know what I mean, like tackle and get on top of. Thinking of little tiny little baby steps that you can do that would make your life easier for tomorrow. And you just kind of do little things like that, and they add up over time. And then soon, it's like, you know, like, honestly, some routines and rhythms, like, sometimes I'm not even thinking of making pancakes on Saturday a routine or a tradition, right? But, like, it happens, and then it's magically a routine, and you're used to it, and then you're like, wow, you don't even think about it anymore. And it's a part of your flow, and it just, you know, like, I think it's worth just going for, and not, you know, it's easy to be overwhelmed and stuff, but just don't give up, because you will. I feel like, you know, seasons change, your life changes, and it is possible.
Right.
You just kind of take baby steps, I think, no matter where you are, you know.
And I guess that's the beauty of being the homemaker, being the home manager, is that you can always, if something's not working, you can scrap it and implement something new, and if that doesn't work, you can just keep adjusting until it does.
Yeah. Any time that I've ever thought that I had a perfect routine, or you know what I mean, like, God will throw you for a loop sometimes and show you that, hey, like, you know what, like, let's adapt, let's keep, like, you can't get too, you know what I mean, like, don't get stuck, don't stick yourself into like an arbitrary structure, because life isn't like that. Children grow, we grow, and we just have to, just kind of go with the flow.
Yeah, that's how motherhood feels too. It's like you have a baby and you finally get in a rhythm with the baby, and then they become a toddler and everything changes, and
I know,
it's like you're constantly readjusting.
Yep, exactly. And that's like literally all we can do is try and adjust and go with the flow gracefully as much as we can. And then honestly, like, as long as you're just trying your hardest, like, I can get snippy sometimes, I get anxious sometimes, I get overwhelmed sometimes, and like, I'm not perfect, but knowing that, like, I pray for God's help every day. I like pray for guidance and help and just trying to do my best. Like that's really all you can do. And your kids know. Your kids aren't expecting you to be perfect. They don't even know what perfect is. You know what I mean? Like our idea of perfect is totally in our head. And like just knowing that their kids are so forgiving, want a fun, loving, happy mom. You know what I mean? So like that's more important than your clean floors.
Yes, that's another thing I would like to be better about my mindset about like the company thing, because when company comes over, it's like that. There's like a funny video that circulated years ago of a guy that was pretending to be his mom when company comes over, and it's like nobody, there can't be any sign of living in the house. People can't know that we sit. Like that's how I feel when people come over, and it's like it's kind of dumb because it's like they obviously know we live here and they're probably not looking and over analyzing things as much as I feel like they are, but it's like it holds me back from wanting to have people over because it's like, oh, I've got to have like everything looks like we just moved in or something.
Oh, I know. No, I totally get that too. And honestly, like that was a big thing for me for a long time, and my husband would tell me the same thing. He was like, we live here, like we've got 3 boys and a baby girl, like we, you know what I mean, and animals, like we live here. And then something that really helped me with that mindset specifically was I'd go over to my friends' houses, right? And like they have different standards than I do about like clean and organized. But never once did I ever like go in and like just start judging someone based on their house. Like it never, you know what I mean? Like you're talking to your friend or hanging out with their kids or talking about whatever. Like no, and knowing that like if that didn't occur to me, right? If I'm not over there being like, wow, there's laundry in the corner. Like that literally didn't occur to me because I'm spending time with my friends. But I know that when people come to my house, it's very likely the same way, right? Like very likely they just want to be with you and enjoy time with you, even if it's not perfect. And like that helped me. That helped me out a lot. Like knowing that they probably weren't judging me, like you said, as much as I'm judging me.
Right, we're our worst critics.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, even my husband, he's like. He grew up, like, his mom died when he was younger, and his dad, like, he just didn't have a stable home life. So, for him to, like, have meals every day and clean clothes every day and all this stuff, he's like, this is more than I could have ever asked for. Like, that's already more than a lot of people have. And so, like, you don't have to be perfect. You know what I mean? Like, just all these little things are actually a big deal, and it doesn't have to be perfect. I was like, okay, well.
Yeah.
That's pretty perfect, but I'm going to try to like, go a little bit.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I guess, I know we're not really talking about hosting, but like in today's topic, but I guess like hosting is more about like you and you welcoming people into your home. And like, I guess if you're having them over for dinner, then making them a nice dinner and making them feel cared for and serving them and that kind of thing. But in my head, it's like I hear, oh, we're having so-and-so over, and it's like, oh, I gotta bleach the whole house.
Oh, I know, no, literally. Or you know what, I honestly, okay, I recently stopped doing this as of like last month. I would want my kids' room to be spotless before they had their friends over to play. And then I realized, like my 8-year-old asked me one time, he was like, it was like they left, you know what I mean? I was like, okay, I was like, I'm gonna help you guys clean up, because obviously, you know, all of your friends, like, were over, and I just helped them clean up. He was like, well, why did we clean up before? And I was like, I like didn't have a logical answer, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't have a real answer to why, like, obviously, like, I make sure it doesn't look like a total mess, right? Like, you gotta clean up your clothes and make sure there's not toys everywhere. But, like, why, you know, I don't need to make sure all their books are perfectly on their shelf, because guess what? Those books are gonna be gone 5 minutes after their friends get over. Right. And it's like, you're gonna have to do it again later. So stuff like that, like, yeah, again, just kind of seeing, like, is this actually a productive, realistic, logical thing, or am I just doing this because I think it should be perfect and no one else cares about it? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Yeah, just like that, yeah, that's like and that honestly just comes with time. Like I said, literally a month ago is when I stopped having my kids deep clean their room before their friends came over. So, like,
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the last time we had company, my son's room was like the one room that I could not get to. I just closed the door. It's like,
oh, I wish.
We're just going to leave it.
I honestly wish it was like that. When you walk in our house, it's like our living room, and then the kids' playroom is like a big open thing off our living room. So it's like they go there.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Like, but it's good though, because when they play with their friends, like we can see them and everyone's still hanging out together, and it's like it's nice. But yeah, definitely just want to close the door sometimes.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
But again, that's like totally like my husband's office. That is a closed door thing that literally nobody but our family sees ever. And it's like I can go in there and help them organize and clean and stuff, but like that's never going to be showroom worthy. You know what I mean? And that's just something. Or like my bedroom, like, you know, there's going to be some laundry on the bed waiting for me to fold it later, and so I just close the bedroom door. Like, you know, stuff like that. Like, so totally, just going with the flow just goes such a long way.
Yes, it does. Well, thank you for talking with me today. I know it encouraged me. I'm sure it'll encourage other people too. Really enjoyed hearing your thoughts on all of that.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I really appreciate you having me on here. And I just hope that it blessed somebody. And I love your podcast. I hope you keep on making episodes. It's my favorite thing to listen to while I'm literally folding laundry.
Thank you. Good. Well, I guess tell everybody, I know we kind of touched on it in the beginning, but if you want to go ahead and tell everybody about where they can find you, and if you want to talk about your magazine for just a second before we wrap up.
Yeah, sure. So I am the Teacup Homestead on Instagram, and my website is theteacuphomestead.com. You can find the magazine, Homemade Homesteading Magazine, on there as well. A brief thing about my magazine, it's Homemade Homesteading Magazine, and my whole goal with it was to just create a platform for women that are sharing encouraging words and content on social media and stuff, to come together and glorify the Lord with their content in a magazine, in a print magazine format. And so I think that as mothers, we can glorify, even just as people, we can glorify God in everything we do, and we should. So that was kind of the thing behind, like, refining the way we go about making our homes, our homesteads, the way we raise our children, the way we are wives to our husbands, and just Christians in general. So it's like a Christian living magazine, and I just hope every issue just blesses people. I'm excited to have you in it, actually, in this winter-fall edition, Emily. I'm very excited.
Thank you. Yes, I'm looking forward to it. And it's a beautiful magazine. It's very pretty and very well put together.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's episode. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that it was encouraging to you. I know I was encouraged listening to Jenna's thoughts on rhythms and routines. So I hope that you will join me next time. Make sure that you're subscribed, and please like this video and share it with a friend. And I will talk to you next time.